I'm a friend and sister to this project. It's been wonderful watching work grow in London that is very much in the same ecological domains as the work we've been doing for over 10 years now in Glasgow with the Glasgow Refugee Asylum Migration Network, and also through the UNESCO chair, which is much more like an untidy heap of scatter cushions for refugee integration through languages and the arts, where we too have been embedding questions of art and arts practice. Not art practice as propaganda, as it so often is in the mainstream, but trying to allow it to have its disruptive narrative flow-like force. And it's my privilege to be able to host this panel. And in doing so, I want to say a couple of things before we start. First of all, the title of this panel is Hosting, Hospitality and the Common Good. And I think this is already pointing to questions which have been itching at us all day. What is the common good? Whose good is served? The common good in the eyes of someone who might lead arms manufacture would look very different from those who oppose it. And I think we're mindful in the room of those tensions and questions. I think it's also important to be mindful of the language that we're using. Whilst there is a translation into Arabic, we're speaking of hosting, hospitality and the common good using English, Anglo-normal phrases. And yet if we go to Greek or Te Reo Māori from Aotearoa, New Zealand, we will find that the word for host and the word for guest is the exact same word. So we are host guests or guest hosts, or it's a verb and we're hosting guesting, or that we are guesting hosting. And it may be worth us holding that as a tension as we listen to the stories and interjections we're going to hear on hosting and guesting. But I think as this morning has developed, I too have been really pondering the question of the humanities, which is always asking the question of what it means to be human. And I'm wondering increasingly as the day goes on, whether to be human is to be host-hosted, whether to be human is to be hosting guesting, whether that is a fundamental universal that we might wish to claim. And I say this mindful of the questions of gender which have been raised. I say this because I speak and chair or sit on a sofa as a barren mother with a body that could not host life, that would miscarry life. And that for me, one of the main questions of scholarship is its incompleteness, is that the long quest for sanctuaries are those of miscarrying. But I also speak as a foster mother to a feisty young daughter who snuggled up to me on a sofa 10 years ago and watched High School Musical on repeat. She took 2 years to share my mother tongue with me and resisted every attempt I might have to learn her daughter tongue. What does it mean to foster? What does kinship mean? What is sisterhood, motherhood, daughterhood? What are these questions and how do they fit with this question of the common good, this question of what it might mean to be a human hosting guest or a guesting human host? And so to guide us through and to start these reflections, it's a great pleasure to invite Banyan up to share her reflections from Refugee Hosts.